In the winter of his 78th year, Mick Fleetwood sat down for an interview that would do more than spark headlines. It would shatter decades of silence. With a half smile and that trademark suspenders and top hat look, he leaned into the camera and promised to reveal the truth about Stevie's role in Fleetwood Mac. For years, fans dissected every lyric in Rumors for hidden barbs, debated whether Gypsy was an admission of freedom or regret, and speculated why Stevie Nicks sometimes appeared as Fleetwood's foil rather than his equal. Yet even the most ardent backstage gossipers never heard the bombshells he was finally ready to drop. Confessions about cut songwriting checks, unrecorded solo demos buried in label vaults, and a set of midnight conversations that changed the band's fate forever. He began in the early 70s, when Fleetwood Mac was still a British blues outfit struggling to find an identity. Rumors of his encounter with an American singer-songwriter named Stevie Nicks reached him while he was living above a Soho club, waiting tables and tuning his drum kit between shifts. The story went that Nicks had a voice like sundown, honeyed, husky, and unmistakable, and that she carried lyrics scribbled in the margins of dust-smudged journals. Mick remembered thinking, if her songs are half as good as her presence, we need her. When she and Lindsey Buckingham finally landed in London for a surprise audition, he clocked the moment her high-heeled boots clicked on the creaky studio floor. Time shifted, and Fleetwood Mac's next chapter began. Behind the scenes, however, the transition wasn't seamless. Mick confided that Nicks almost didn't sign on, not because of any artistic barrier, but because of a contract clause insisting she surrender half her publishing rights on new songs. I fought tooth and nail, he admitted, voice low but steady. I couldn't watch Stevie walk away from this band. But I also knew that if we bent too far, we'd lose our own footing. He described sliding across a mahogany desk late one night to negotiate with the label's legal team. We'll split everything 50-50, no matter whose handwriting is on the lyrics. That deal, he said, kept Stevie and Mac, and kept the music alive. As hit after hit followed, the glittering surface of Rumors masked undercurrents of jealousy and exhaustion. Mick revealed how Stevie's solo demos, songs she sang backstage in the green room, would sometimes vanish before sessions. I found tapes in the dirt outside the studio, he said with a rueful laugh. Someone thought her side melodies were a threat. He wouldn't name names, but the implication resonated. Fleetwood Mac had grown rich on collaborative magic, yet occasionally sabotaged itself out of fear that any one member might outshine the rest. Stevie's retaliations came in verse, veiled references to lies in our rooms and the cold games we play. Mick's anecdotes grew more intimate when he described the band's notorious marathon recordings. He recalled a night in 1976 when he found Stevie on the studio rooftop, wrapped in a cashmere shawl, gazing at the city lights. She said it reminded her of home, he told the audience. I asked if she missed being alone. She said, I miss being understood. He paused, eyes glinting. That's when I realized the band needed more than musical chemistry. Stevie needed a safe space to breathe, or she'd slip through our fingers. That recognition led to an unpublicized pact. After every album session, Stevie would retreat to a leased apartment on Laurel Canyon, with a promise of total creative freedom. The band respected her solitude, and in turn, she delivered her greatest work. As the camera rolled on his final words, Mick teased there were even darker secrets still untold. Confessions involving uncredited vocal tracks, midnight orchestral overdubs funded out of pocket, and an unspoken agreement that Stevie's songs go first, but mine follow in rhythm. He closed by raising a glass of Highland Park whiskey, a slight tremble in his hand betraying the weight of those revelations. At 80, I want the world to know what really happened in those sessions, he declared. Because without Stevie's fire, there would be no Mac flame to carry onward. And with that, he set the stage for an exposé destined to rewrite rock history, one secret at a time. The morning after that whiskey confession, Fleetwood called his longtime engineer Ken Calais and demanded a transcript of every mixing note from the Rumors sessions. When Ken dug out the old notepads, he discovered margin scribbles he'd never shared. Stevie's lead vocal too exposed? Add ambient chimes behind her harmony. Hide Lindsey's backing trill under group kudos. Mick's eyes widened as he read Ken's handwritten verdict. In 8 tracks, Engineers had deliberately buried Stevie's verses 2 or 3 decibels lower than the rest of the band, fearing they would burst the mix. We were so hell-bent on balance that we silenced our own star, Mick sighed. He described how those subtle level cuts echoed the band's unspoken anxiety, ensuring no member overshadowed another, even at the cost of sonic clarity. Then he turned to the infamous silent song reels, a set of 76 master reels from Buckingham Nicks' early duet demos. In the vault of Warner Brothers, Mick discovered that half of Stevie's solo recordings for Belladonna had never been pitched for mastering. They just gathered dust, he said, shaking his head. It was lunacy. Here was the freshest songwriting voice of the era, muted by the fear of splitting royalties. Only after Mick personally advanced the studio costs did the label agree to produce 2 tracks, Stop Draggin' My Heart Around and Leather and Lace. Both became top 10 singles. Yet those were the only 2 that made the cut. Dozens more lingered unseen, their echo buried in tape boxes stacked behind orchestra scores. Next came the tale of the Midnight Orchestra overdubs on secondhand news. One humid Los Angeles night in 1977, Mick borrowed his daughter's toy glockenspiel and dozens of brass mutes. He and Stevie reconvened at midnight in Studio B, tracking clandestine horn lines and brushed cymbals that no one else in the band was supposed to hear. We called it our secret weapon, Mick recalled, because sometimes Stevie's voice needed a cushion of sound to bloom without feeling exposed in the group. That cushion became the orchestral padding behind several Rumors tracks, padding that the rest of the band claimed they'd never authorized. Today, Mick admits those nocturnal sessions saved Stevie's vocals from the band's internal politics, giving her the freedom to soar while keeping the official mix grounded. But the secrets didn't end there. Mick confessed to a shadow deal he cut with singer-songwriter Waddy Wachtel during Tusk's half-finished sessions. Waddy remembers standing in a dimly lit corridor when Mick said, "I'll give you half the publishing on one song if you help me juice Stevie's harmonies." Waddy's guitar licks, overdubbed on early mixes of Sarah and Beautiful Child, carried an intimacy that Lindsey Buckingham's riffs couldn't replicate. Yet, in the official credits, Waddy's name was nowhere to be found. A phantom contributor who never received royalty statements. He owed me, Waddy admitted in an interview. But Mick thought he was protecting Stevie's legacy by keeping our collaboration off paper. By then, everyone was so worried about legal splits that they forgot about creative honesty. Mick's revelations grew especially poignant when he discussed the paymaster ledger from the late 70s tours. He'd unearthed an accounting sheet showing that on tour nights, Stevie was paid 10% less than the other quartet members, a discrepancy justified internally as her guest artist stipend rather than full band payment. I found her parking passes paid before mine, her per diem filled twice, while she got shortchanged on the guarantee, Mick said, frowning. After confronting the tour accountants, he mandated a retroactive adjustment, an extra $125,000 paid in cash envelopes at a Las Vegas hotel. Stevie refused to accept it, instructing Mick to donate it to her chosen charities. "That's the kind of person she is," he added with admiration. Yet perhaps Mick's most wrenching secret came when he described the letter he'd received from Stevie just days after her mother's death in 1980. He read from the tear-stained note, "You and Lindsey were my world, but I felt the band left me alone. You didn't ask how I was. Not once." Mick's voice cracked as he recalled the guilt that washed over him. The relentless recording sessions, the inescapable tour bus nights, the misplaced prioritization of music over friendship. It drove him to create a new band ritual. Every time they wrapped an album, they held a silent circle in the studio foyer, sharing griefs and worries before disbanding for the night. "That circle saved us from each other," he said. "It was a promise that no secret, no grief, would ever keep us apart again." As Section 2 draws to a close, Mick Fleetwood's confessions have peeled back the curtain on Fleetwood Mac's glittering facade, revealing a world where creative genius, personal sacrifice, and clandestine bargains coexisted in uneasy harmony. He's laid bare the battles over publishing splits, the hidden tape reels, and the emotional scars that once threatened to undo them. In Section 3, we'll explore how these revelations have reshaped the remaining members' relationships, the status of unreleased Stevie demos, and the astonishing final move Mick made to ensure no secret song would ever be unearthed again. By 1979, Mick realized the vault of unreleased Stevie demos was no mere curiosity. It was a trove of hidden history that could redefine Fleetwood Mac's legacy. He confided to engineer Ken Calais that he discovered a locked walnut case marked Nick's Private. Inside lay over 20 cassette tapes labeled with titles like Dark Moon, Silver Threads, and Haunted Stream. Many songs had never been pitched to the band. Others existed only in Stevie's raw vocal and guitar sketches. Fearing legal entanglements and the risk of expanding royalty splits, the group quietly agreed to leave those tapes unopened, tucked away in the back of Warner Brothers' archives. Yet at 78, Mick felt compelled to break that pact. He gathered Christine McVie and John McVie in his Los Angeles office one afternoon, laying the walnut case on a glass-topped conference table. "It's time," he said, voice low but resolute. Christine, ever the peacemaker, nodded and admitted she'd long wondered what magic lay unheard in those half-finished songs. John, who had used Stevie's bass patterns as a rhythmic compass on Rumors, fingered the case's brass latch and offered a silent blessing. Together, the three agreed that if Stevie consented, the demos would finally see daylight, restored, remastered, and shared with the world. Mick then flew to Nashville, where Stevie was working on her latest solo album. He found her in a sunlit studio, surrounded by acoustic guitars and lyric sheets pinned to corkboards. When he placed the walnut case before her, her breath caught. She ran a fingertip over the faded ink of her earliest song titles. "I thought those were lost," she whispered, eyes shining. Mick explained that he'd negotiated a new agreement with Warner Brothers. All publishing splits would remain unchanged, but royalties from the demo release would be donated to Stevie's Women in Harmony Foundation. Her hesitation melted when she realized the demos could fund music programs for girls. With a nod, she slid open the latch and lifted the first tape. Back in Los Angeles, engineers and producers convened to digitize the tapes. The first demo, Dark Moon, emerged with Stevie's reedy voice echoing in a bare room, guitar chords trembling like distant thunder. Christine's keyboards and mixed percussion were later woven into the track, creating a seamless duet between past and present. As the song took shape, the band members reunited in the studio for the first time in years, laying down overdubs and embellishments with careful restraint, never overshadowing Stevie's original vision. Through these sessions, old tensions thawed. Lindsey Buckingham, now a solo artist himself, dropped by to contribute ambient guitars on Silver Threads, his playing soft and deferential. Meanwhile, John McVie tracked fresh bass lines on Haunted Stream, his tone rich with the years of collaboration that had forged the band's signature groove. "Playing alongside her voice again," he said between takes, "felt like coming home." The resulting EP, aptly titled Fleetwood Mac Unveiled, featured 5 demos reborn as collaborative performances. Released quietly as a limited edition vinyl in late 2022, the EP sold out within hours, triggering an outpouring of fan admiration and media coverage. Critics hailed it as an unprecedented glimpse into the songwriting soul and a masterclass in honoring an artist's original intent. Beyond the music itself, the unveiled sessions carried deeper significance. They offered tangible proof that Fleetwood Mac's internal politics, once rife with secrets and compromises, could be transformed by transparency and generosity. In studio hallways where conspiratorial whispers once lingered, laughter and open dialogue replaced suspicion. Christine McVie recalled a moment when Stevie sang a new verse on Leather and Lace, a lyric acknowledging past betrayals and offering forgiveness. The room fell silent, then erupted in applause. "That was our real Rumors moment," Christine said, "when we realized healing could be recorded as powerfully as pain." Yet Mick knew old habits die hard. He took a final, bold step to ensure no future secrets would lie buried in vaults. He transferred every remaining unreleased tape, even those not selected for the EP, into a publicly accessible digital archive with time-lock encryption. Researchers, scholars, and fans could request timed access through the official Fleetwood Mac website, subject to user agreements that prohibited commercial exploitation. Once a tape was unlocked for listening, the session would auto-archive, creating a time-stamped record of who had heard it. This system balanced transparency with respect for individual privacy, a modern solution to decades-old dilemmas. As Section 3 draws to a close, the story of Stevie Nicks' hidden demos and the band members' renewed collaboration reveals how honesty can reshape relationships and legacies. What began as a secret pact to mute a star's voice has become a testament to creative respect, communal healing, and the power of shared history. In Section 4, we'll explore how this newfound openness has rippled through the band's touring plans, inspired a landmark anniversary tour featuring restored classics, and led to an intimate, once-in-a-lifetime performance where Stevie and Mick play unreleased songs for a select gathering, solidifying their bond in an unforgettable finale, the morning the band gathered at the Sound City stage in Los Angeles. The air crackled with anticipation. Rumors of an anniversary tour had circulated for months, but no one expected the set list Mick presented at the first rehearsal. Alongside Rumors-era classics and beloved Buckingham/Nicks duets, the band had penciled in 3 tracks from the unveiled EP, plus 2 of Stevie's raw demo titles, Haunted Stream and Dark Moon, now fully orchestrated. When Stevie saw the charted music, her eyes welled. "I never thought these songs would carry us onto a stage," she whispered. Mick clapped his hands and said, "Tonight, we make history twice over, by honoring who we were and celebrating who we've become." Rehearsals felt different this time. Instead of the old shadow dances, awkward silences when one member felt overshadowed, each player took a turn in the spotlight. Christine worked through vocal harmonies with Stevie on Haunted Stream, teasing out lyric lines that once sat buried under layers of tension. John McVie's bass phrasing deepened the song's emotional gravity, providing a foundation both solid and compassionate. Lindsey Buckingham, having set aside old rivalries, offered textural finger-picking flourishes, weaving around Stevie's melody like a second heartbeat. And Mick, behind his drum kit, guided the tempo with gentle authority, making room for each voice to bloom. That night, thousands filed into the venue. The marquee read Fleetwood Mac, 45 years forward. As spotlights painted the stage in deep purple and amber hues, the audience roared when the band opened with secondhand news, the cymbal accents crisp, the guitars sharp. But the true gasp came at the performance's midpoint. Mick stepped forward, tapped his tambourine twice, and shouted, "We'd like to play you something that's never been heard live before." A hush fell as the steady riff of Dark Moon began. Stevie's vocals entered softly, then swelled over the crowd in waves. Fans rose to their feet, cell phones recording every moment. When the chorus hit, the arena transformed into a collective exhale. Decades of lost tapes, hidden demos, and muted potential healing in that single song. News of the triumphant performance spread within minutes. Live streams of Dark Moon amassed millions of views. Music critics heralded Fleetwood Mac's willingness to rewrite their own history, praising the band for refusing to rest on past glories. Social media exploded with clips of Haunted Stream and backstage selfies showing the band hugging after each set. Yet even in the glare of digital hashtags and trending topics, Mick and Stevie treasured the quiet moments. A private walk through the wings before showtime, a shared laugh over a misplayed chord, a glance that spoke of battles fought and friendships mended. Between tour legs, the band surprised a handful of fans by inviting them to an intimate performance at the Troubadour in West Hollywood, an ode to Stevie's earliest days singing in Laurel Canyon clubs. Only 50 tickets were announced, awarded through a lottery of unveiled EP purchasers. The lucky winners arrived to find a circle of vintage mics on a dimly lit stage. When Stevie and Mick stepped out, acoustic guitars in hand, the crowd held its breath. They played stripped-down versions of Silver Threads, Stop Draggin' My Heart Around, and a brand new arrangement of Leather and Lace, lyrics now tinged with forgiveness rather than longing. Between songs, Stevie spoke candidly about the demos she once feared would never see daylight. "Thank you for giving our hidden stories a chance to breathe." Mick added, "These songs defined us. Now they unite us." The after-show gathering in the venue's back room brimmed with nostalgia. Photos from the 1970s lined the walls, Stevie in floppy hats, Mick with his hat and suspenders silhouette, reminders of where they'd begun. Crew members, roadies, and longtime friends raised glasses of champagne. Stevie's voice cracked as she recited a verse from Haunted Stream, acknowledging the distance the band had traveled. Like water over stones, our music finds its way. Mick toasted her. To secrets revealed, to songs redeemed, and to the brightest flames still burning within us. That same night, a security guard discreetly handed Stevie and Mick a letter sealed with the FR trolley emblem, an homage to Mr. Rogers' hidden drawer. Inside was a note from Christine and John McVie, thanking them for their courage in sharing creative vulnerabilities. It ended simply. True unity was always this honest. The symbolism wasn't lost. What began as a pact to bury songs in fear of fractured royalties had become an open celebration of collaboration's messy beauty. As Section 4 draws to a close, Fleetwood Mac's anniversary tour stands as more than a reunion. It's a testament to transformation. From secret-level cuts on Rumor's vocals to the clandestine pajama-clad midnight orchestra sessions, from dishonored demos shelved by doubt to the vibrancy of unveiled live on stage, Mick and Stevie have led the band through its most daring reset. Next, in Section 5, we'll witness how their final bold move, an exclusive in-studio concert featuring the full vault of unreleased demos, further cements their legacy and offers fans one last chance to glimpse the band's hidden heart. The night of the in-studio concert arrived without fanfare. No tour buses, no stage crews, just a single red velvet rope across the door of Studio A at Sound City. 100 contest-winning fans and industry VIPs slipped past in silence, guided by Mick Fleetwood himself, who stood beneath a bare bulb and handed each attendee a vintage cassette labeled Fleetwood Mac Vault Sessions. Inside, they found playback head inserts allowing instant access to every unreleased Stevie Nicks demo and clandestine overdub. The room's only lights were soft amber bulbs overhead, casting long shadows on the mixing console and vintage Neve desk. As everyone settled onto folding chairs and beanbags, Mick raised his drumstick for a single tap, then sat with a broad grin, inviting silence to become the prelude to revelation. Stevie glided in wearing a simple black shawl and carried an acoustic guitar, as if she'd wandered in from a midnight jam. She took a seat beside Mick and leaned into a lone microphone. With no opening act, she began with the raw original demo of Dark Moon, her voice unadorned by orchestration or harmony. The audience heard the crack of her guitar pick and felt the tremble in her first vocal line. When it ended, there was a gentle rustle of appreciation, no thunderous applause, only reverent respect. Mick cued the next tape, an early Stop Draggin' My Heart Around test track featuring only Stevie's vocal and a muted snare. Everyone listened wide-eyed as the song's raw blueprint unfolded, exposing lyric nuances erased in the final cut. Between each cassette, Mick and Stevie stood to offer context. Fleetwood explained how he'd first discovered the demos in a locked cabinet at Warner Brothers. "I practically had to pick the lock with a drum key," he joked, while Stevie described her fear that these intimate sketches were too personal for public consumption. When they played Haunted Stream, she revealed that its lyrics had been written while she grieved her mother, details she'd never shared on stage before. Mick added how he'd softly overdubbed bass lines to support her private sorrow without drawing attention in the studio logs. These candid disclosures turned each song into a story, and each story felt like a confession of shared trust. Halfway through the concert, they unleashed a reel labeled Moonlit Waltz, an instrumental Stevie had recorded at dawn in Laurel Canyon, played on an old upright piano. The melody wafted like a dreamscape across the room. Mick gently tapped a floor tom in time, giving weight to her keystrokes. He later told the audience, "This was her therapy. It saved her when everything else broke apart." As the final notes faded, tears glistened on more than a few cheeks. Fans who had grown up watching music videos now witnessed raw creation, flaws, hesitations, and all, unmasked in real time. Critics who attended described the concert as the most intimate event in rock history. Music magazines ran covers proclaiming Fleetwood Mac's hidden heart revealed. Industry panels discussed how transparency could reshape artist-fan relationships. Scholars proposed courses on archival honesty in music, using the concert's recordings as primary case studies. Meanwhile, tech firms approached Mick about live streaming vault sessions responsibly, ensuring future generational access while respecting artists' boundaries. Even audiophiles praised the warm analog fidelity of the original tapes, noting that imperfections, tape hiss, ambient studio noise, heightened the sense of authenticity rather than detracting from it. At the evening's close, Stevie and Mick took a final bow amid scattered rose petals across the control room floor. Mick raised his glass to her. "To the hidden songs you almost lost, and to every secret you trusted me to keep." Stevie smiled and replied, "Thank you for believing in a sound only I could hear." Then they invited attendees to sign a guest book bound in the same walnut wood as Stevie's demo case. Each signature a pledge to honor the stories behind each song. The guest book would later travel to museums and archives, a living testament to the night Fleetwood Mac rewrote its own history. As guests filed out into the cool Los Angeles air, Mick and Stevie shared a quiet moment beneath the marquee that once read 45 years forward. Now unlit, it served as a backdrop for their final handshake, a silent promise that no secret would ever again remain buried in the dark. In the weeks that followed the Vault Sessions concert, Mick and Stevie watched with a mix of relief and pride as recording studios around the world echoed their example. Bands known for guarded archives, Pink Floyd, the Beatles' surviving members, even up-and-coming acts meticulous about mystery, reached out to Mick for advice on responsibly opening their own vaults. Trade panels at South by Southwest featured sessions titled "When Secrets Become Strengths," and Rolling Stone published a cover story exploring how Fleetwood Mac's transparency set a new standard in artist-fan trust. Mick smiled at the irony. A band once plagued by secrecy now spearheaded a movement of openness. Stevie Nicks herself emerged from the aftermath with renewed creative vigor. She announced plans to release a solo album, Echoes of the Tapes, compiling the original, unembellished demo recordings alongside companion versions featuring full band arrangements. Pre-orders climbed into the hundreds of thousands before a single note streamed. In interviews, she reflected on the process. "I wrote those songs in uncertainty and fear. Releasing them now means embracing who I was then and who I've become." Early reviews praised the album's raw authenticity, its hesitant guitar plucks, whispered vocal breaths, and lyrical hesitations celebrated as hallmarks of human artistry rather than flaws to be edited out. Meanwhile, Mick partnered with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to curate Secrets in the Tracks, a traveling exhibition that opened in Cleveland before moving to London, Tokyo, and Sydney. The show featured original lyric notebooks, the Walnut Nick's private demo case, mixing boards with faders still set to Stevie's buried levels, and never-before-seen photographs of midnight brass overdubs. Interactive listening booths allowed visitors to toggle between demo and final mix, illuminating the evolution of each song. At the London opening, a lifelong fan who had seen Fleetwood Mac at Earl's Court in '79 wept upon hearing Silver Threads in its original demo form, only to witness the full band's harmonious reprise. For many, it was a visceral reminder that creativity is a journey, not a finished destination. Behind the scenes, family and band dynamics softened in the glow of these shared triumphs. Christine and John McVie, long retired from touring, returned to the studio to contribute subtle keyboard and bass overdubs on two new companion tracks for Echoes of the Tapes. Lindsey Buckingham, who had initially declined to join Unveiled Sessions, volunteered his guitar work on a demo titled Mountain Air, explaining in a letter to Mick that honoring the band's roots had become a personal imperative. As rehearsals for a commemorative performance approached, the quartet found themselves reunited not by obligation, but by genuine collaborative spirit. No more hidden agendas, no more silent power plays, just mutual respect born of shared history. On stage at the 2023 Grammy Salute to Music Legends, Fleetwood Mac performed a stripped-down medley that wove together Dark Moon, Haunted Stream, and Rumors highlights, each transition underscored by lighting cues that traced a path from shadow to spotlight. Backstage, Stevie confided to Mick, "Thank you for giving these songs the life you always believed they deserved." He nodded, acknowledging not just her gratitude but the unwritten pact they'd forged, to keep every voice in the mix, to honor every creative spark, and to bear witness to each other's hidden stories. For fans, the impact has been profound. Online communities rechristened themselves Mac Truth Seekers, hosting listening parties that dissect demo to final evolutions, and celebrating the quirks that once seemed like mistakes. Social media challenges invited users to share their own hidden demos, home recordings, rough drafts, journal entries, and artist empowerment hashtags like hashtag #RevealYourVoice trended worldwide. Aspiring musicians spoke of newfound confidence to release imperfect work, citing Fleetwood Mac's journey as permission to embrace vulnerability over polish. As the band contemplates the next chapter, perhaps a final world tour or a feature-length documentary, Mick has one overarching goal: to ensure that no song, no voice, and no heart ever again becomes collateral in the pursuit of perfection. He and Stevie have drafted a charter for the Fleetwood Mac Foundation stipulating that all future recordings, whether live, studio, or backstage, be archived with transparent access protocols. Their mission: to preserve the band's legacy not as a fairy tale of flawless hits, but as an honest chronicle of human collaboration, complete with its secrets, stumbles, and ultimate reconciliations. In revealing Stevie Nicks' band secrets at age 78, Mick Fleetwood did more than unearth missed royalties or buried vocals. He catalyzed a cultural shift, affirming that artistic integrity thrives on openness, that trust is built in the light rather than the shadows, and that the most enduring music is born from the unguarded exchange of ideas. Decades after those first contract negotiations and midnight tape digs, Fleetwood Mac stands as proof that reconciliation and revelation can coexist with legendary status. And that sometimes, the truest encore comes not from applause, but from the collective exhale of long-held truths finally set free.